Hey, it's Curtis. I've been a teacher for 35 years, and I've always wondered what little techniques or new things that teachers can introduce in their classroom to students that will actually make learning easier. And it's been a passion of me to take a look at various learning and memory styles. I have here 21 books on memory and learning. And I want to do a review of each of these books and then at some point put together my own meta analysis. And the book that we're going to actually start with is Learning How to Learn. And this is a excellent book by Barbara Oakley, Terence Sednowski, and Alistair McConville. Now, what's really interesting about this book is that Oakley is a professor of engineering at Oakland University. And the reason she got very passionate about learning and memory was because in high school she failed all of her math and science classes. And here she is now a professor of engineering. The Sednowski, professor of Salk Institute for Biology and Sciences, also directs the Computational Neurology Laboratory. And again, everything that we're going to talk about in this book is actually science-based. McConville, he's a deputy lead of Bedales School, which is one of England's most prestigious universities. Now, this book is written primarily for students to read, teenagers, approximately grade 7 through to grade 12, and post-secondary as well, with an explanation of how to make learning easier so that students won't have to spend all of their time studying. Let's take a look and let's begin. Learning How to Learn Part 1. I have Part 1 on here simply because of the fact that it's quite an extensive book and there are a number of topics that are actually covered. So let me put these books aside. And the book starts out with a note to parents and to teachers. And basically, understanding how the brain works can make learning more fun and less frustrating for students. Wouldn't that be a beautiful thing? Active involvement, of course, in learning is key. All teachers know this and work towards this in their classrooms. And then they make the premise that learning these skills younger is better because you have more time to hone in and practice and perfect these particular skills. Oakley talks about the problem with passion, and as a high school student, English and the humanities came in relatively easy to her, and she could not figure out how to make math and sciences work for her. And so, needless to say, and again, we've seen this in many students, they'll go towards where their strengths naturally are and shy away from those things that are more challenging. All students can learn to improve their learning is the base premise. The techniques and lessons shared with you will not necessarily be easy. So learning how to learn is not necessarily easy, but it takes practice and repetition. These techniques can also be transferred into things like sports and video games and musical instruments. You name it, you can apply these skills. This will make your years in school more fun, less frustrating, and opens future horizons. Easy does it. Why trying too hard can sometimes be part of the problem. And again, we see many instances of this where a student studies for days and nights and works till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and then come in and they write a test and they fail the exam. Sometimes you need to be less focused in order to become a better learner, and that's weird. Neuroscience has determined that the brain learns in 2 different ways. There's a focused mode and there's a diffuse mode. Now, focused mode is when you're trying to learn something new to turn on the brain and get the learning process actually started. And we're going to dig into this a little bit further here shortly. Diffuse mode is when your brain is relaxed and it's free. You get the daydream, you get the doodle. This will allow you to make imaginative connections between ideas leading to creativity. Now, we've probably all experienced this in our own life. where we're perplexed with a problem. And myself as an administrator, when I'd be working on a schedule and I'd get stuck and I couldn't figure out a particular problem, I would just set it aside and I'd go to sleep at that night and I wouldn't worry about it. And miraculously in the middle of the night or in the shower in the morning, the answer comes to me and I know exactly what to do. And that's a skill that we need to learn, or to have our students learn and experience so that they can actually apply it. Importantly, your brain can only be in one mode at a time. Now, there's all kinds of distractibility for students in today's world, especially with the technology being the way it is. So learning that skill of focus and setting everything aside, because we all know they're focused, something distracts them, and then when they go back to try to get into a focus mode, it takes even longer to settle into it and recoup the learning that they had learned. So how do you switch between focus and diffuse modes? There's my scenario. I've ever been stuck on a math problem. I used to use this with students when they're in a math diploma. And I'd say, you know what, you dig into a problem, you spend 1 or 2 minutes. If you're stuck, put a check mark next to that question or a question mark next to that question and go on to the next thing and focus on something else, another problem. And eventually you'll be able to come back to that problem and probably solve it relatively easily. Ever have your best ideas in the shower? We talked about that too. Sometimes when we get stuck, we focus and try even harder, when the best approach is to step away and focus on something totally different. This gives the diffuse mode an opportunity to do its work. Going back and forth between focus and diffuse modes will allow you to master anything. That's the premise in this book, and Oakley swears by this because she ended up doing a PhD in engineering and applied the skills she learned to speak Russian in the military to learn math and sciences. So let's talk about procrastination. I'll do it later. Honest. They talk about the Pomodoro technique in this chapter as well, and they talk about actually procrastination as being the enemy of high quality learning. It's like cramming for the exam the night before, as opposed to spaced repetition and utilizing things like active recall. If you procrastinate, you often run out of time, and the learning actually becomes very stressful. Time and practice work together to allow you to cement in new ideas into your brain. And she talks about developing the neurons in your brain, the dendrites, and the dendritic spines, which link together all of these paths within your brain. So here's the magic. When you're having a hard time procrastinating, just like I have doing this video, just get started. After a short period of time, the insular cortex, the thing that's telling you not to do it, calms down and the pain will start going away. Just getting started. Well, she talks about the Pomodoro technique. Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. And this goes back to an actual timer that was shaped like a tomato. Shut off all distractions for focus mode. Turn off phones, turn off music, turn off the TV, anything that gets in the way of you being able to focus. Set your phone aside, put it on silence, and the phones today even have different focus modes that you can set up. You set a timer on the Pomodoro technique for 25 minutes. Don't worry about finishing the task that you have at hand, and this is focus mode. Do not switch between tasks. So focus on, if it's just math, if it's reading a chapter, just focus on those things. Don't switch to another task. This is a skill set that can be, I think, easily taught within a classroom. And, you know, you'd look at a grade 7 to 9 class, oftentimes the classes are about 40 minutes, and you take 25 minutes and you practice this maybe once a week or twice a week at most, and you have students practice this skill within the classroom. Silence, focus for 25 minutes, And then when that's done, you have them go into a diffuse mode for 5 or for 10 minutes. They can get up, they can move around. You switch to a totally different activity, maybe something that's fun and entertaining, but still involves learning. Easily applied within the classroom, and that's one of the techniques today in terms of focus mode is the Pomodoro technique. I've recently started to become a registered retirement consultant, and so I'm back on learning modes here. And the first unit I have, I was looking at it today, is about 496 pages long. And I'm actually going to take these techniques that she talks about here in this book and apply them to my actual learning. Now, that's not the entire content of this chapter. I'm actually going to break it down into 4 different parts, but there's a real carrot at the end. All of this is set up as an online course that you can register for free. You could do this as a teacher in a learning strategies classroom and work through this online course with your students, and there's video and all those types of things. Or you could have your students register for that class and take that class. In today's world and in schooling, there seems to be a lack of instruction associated with how to learn. Many years ago, with one of my physics and chem teachers, the statement that she had made was, students don't know how to study. And she was right. And every Monday for the last 10 years, students in the entire student body during their learning strategies class would get a presentation on learning how to learn. So let's see as we go along and refine this particular practice, and let's see what gems that we can come up with over a period of time. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.